to the playoffs edition of Clack's Corner. It's great to see everybody tonight.
Hey, hey.
I'm your host for tonight, Bill Weaver. Not as charming as some of my audience members, but I'll give it my best tonight. We had a great group out here, guys like Todd Towns. Hard to put up a show like that guy can, but I'm here, as always, with our esteemed guest, Adam Clack. Coach, great to see you.
Appreciate you having me.
It's hard to believe we've had 7 football games since we last did this. How time flies, right?
That's right.
But what a great 7 football games. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about the season in general. We're going to talk about a lot of things that have happened during the course of the season. Not going to go into every detail of every game, but there's just some really cool stuff that we'll look at tonight relative to stats compared to last year, talk about some specifics of the program and how you guys operate. But again, a lot to cover. If you've got questions that you would like to ask that I'm not going to ask, I passed out some pieces of paper. Please take a second to jot those down. We're not going to take a break in between those questions and the regular segment. So write those down and feel free to just walk up and hand them to me. And we will get to those. Nothing like being spontaneous.
That's right.
All right.
On the spot.
Hey, so let's talk about the season in general. 8-2. Congratulations. That is a big number for Milton football. 8 wins on a regular season. Got off to a super fast start. Those first 3 games were, wow, they had to have taken a lot out of your team. I mean, we played 2 teams we generally don't play that are big-time programs. Right in the middle of that, we played one of our crosstown rivals. How is your team coming out of the 3rd week?
Yeah, we talked about this a little earlier, and, you know, we knew kind of quietly without trying to talk too much about it and put too much pressure on the boys, but, you know, I kind of said it in staff meetings, like, I know every game is just another game, but these are kind of big games for the program. To get on the stage that we were on with Corky Kell and playing what a lot of people thought was, an odds-on, state front runner and a national contender. Also hosting the Freedom Bowl. You know, I kind of knew or I have an idea of what that's going to be. I knew it's going to another big stage and playing a Cardinal Gibbons. So we really prepared hard and pushed hard to be able to represent, the way we want to on a stage like that. And after you get through those 3 games, I made a comment. I was like, man, I don't know if I've ever been this tired, this fatigued going into week 4. So yeah, we really put a lot into those 3 ball games and starting starting out high.
Yeah, and week 4 was a big game. Obviously, another crosstown rival in Roswell. Some would say our biggest rival, and gave up a couple of points early.
Yep.
With those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of go through it. Then you don't really get a chance to catch your breath. You hit a bye week, and I made the decision to really give them some time off, give the coaches some time off, give the players some time off, just because I felt we needed it. Because you got to gear right back up for Roswell and a Parkview team that is undefeated now and ranked number 2 in the state. And I did. I felt like we dipped a little there, and I could feel it. You could kind of sense it. The energy levels were a little low. Maybe you came out a little flat after the bye week. But again, I didn't want to panic, and I didn't want to press, knowing that it's still preseason in a sense, knowing what we went through, and then kind of what we had with those 2 games. I was really just more wanting to learn the lessons from those games. Hey, we've been in some tough ball games. We've won some close ones. We had a heartbreaker. We've been down at half. We're able to battle back. Like, those are all good lessons if you learn from them to go 0-0 into a region schedule.
Sure.
That's when I wanted to really start to press again and start to amp the intensity of the week up.
Yeah, in that Roswell game, I mean, obviously giving up 10 points right at the beginning of the game, and then getting it down to 2, almost pulled something miraculous out at the end.
Right. Yeah, credit to them, and they've done it kind of throughout the year. They find ways to seemingly make the timely big play or really make you pay for your mistake. After going back and watching that game, people, you were just off. I was like, well, maybe not our best game, but we played a fairly good game.
Yep.
I mean, I wasn't embarrassed by the way we played. They block a field goal for a touchdown, and we're fighting like heck to get the guy down, and shoot, we lose a starter on that play to a broken arm, and and then they just kind of, we fought back, but I think they ran 75 plays in that game, and kind of wore us down a little bit there towards the end. But it's really cool to see that, like you said, even with 5 seconds to go down, that our guys were going to fight till the last second, and we almost pulled something crazy off. And I just got a feeling that's going to pay off down the road.
Yeah, good. Well, you come out of that game, you go into Parkview. That first half, I think a lot of us may have looked at that first half thinking, wow, are we on a slide here? But man, was that second half a completely different football team? And saying, what happened at halftime?
Well, the big thing, kind of going back, everything's connected. You go back to the Parkview game or you go back to the Roswell game, and we lose our starting inside linebacker with a broken arm, and then we have a player kind of becoming eligible in Nasir Curry. So we've got some pieces moving around on defense there, where we actually had 3 new starters in a sense, where we were sliding some people around. And Parkview's a tough team to do that. They do some very, very good things on offense. They have probably arguably one of the best offensive lines we went to get, them and Roswell together. And I just think we were a little finding our way in that first half, and they made us pay for it. Offensively, felt like we always were moving the ball. We just couldn't quite cash in early. And then coming out of the second half, whether they let their guard down a little bit or we finally woke up, we finally started getting them off the field, and we started punching things in to score. And what was kind of cool was early in the third quarters when I think the team saw, hey, we're actually going to win this thing, down by, make a score to go down by 16, and we decided we're going to start going for 2 and going for onside kicks, because I knew we would run out of time if we didn't get those extra possessions. So guys responded, and we had a shot right there at the end, and came up a little short. But again, it's something that spurred a lot of conversation in the meeting room, spurred a lot of things with our players. Just talking through, okay, game's on the line. What are we going to do? What's going to be our best play to win the ball game for a 2-point conversion, to win the ball game from the 5-yard line, to win the ball game from the 8-yard line? So kind of all those things are lessons learned.
So let's talk about that next week of practice. Obviously, coming out of 2 losses where you lost by a combined of 4 points. I mean, 2 points each game. Where was your team at that point? How did they respond that week of practice going into the region?
Yeah, never really panicked. Just by looking into their eyes after that Parkview game. We talked at that halftime. Hey, what an awesome opportunity in a game that truly doesn't matter, other than just getting better. We're down. Let's see if we can fight back. Let's see what type of heart. Let's see what type of competitiveness we have. And so some people don't believe in moral victories and things of that nature. I kind of tend to believe in that you can take some things away from a good loss. And, I think it was really kind of that, like I said, if you kind of look at a season and measure it almost like a stock market, right? A little mini peak after the Cardinal Gibbons game, and then we came back, and I really believe that halftime of Parkview was where we started to climb again. And so maybe it sounds kind of silly, but I felt like we actually had momentum coming out of that because of how well we played for second half compared to first half. And we could even, kind of correlate that to the way our week of practice went. We kind of had two lackluster weeks of practice going into those games after the exhausting start. So we really hit the bye week and then the week of prep for West. One of the best weeks of practice we had all year.
Well, it may be an understatement to say that you had momentum going into that, because you go through the region like a hot knife through butter. I mean, 5 games. I've got a few stats here that I'll share with everybody, but what an unbelievable run. Milton has never seen that in its history, a domination of its region like you guys had for those 5 games.
Right. And I mean, we're the best team. I mean, we are. There's really not a whole lot of argument about it. And I'm not, it is what it is. That's an objective analysis, our talent is better than the talent that we lined up against in our region. With that being said, that's what you're supposed to do when you're the more talented team. And we didn't talk about blowouts. We didn't talk about what we should do and how much we should win by. We talked about starting fast. We felt last year, as we look back on the season, and we look back in our region, that we allowed teams to trap us into games. We shouldn't allow that. If anything, I'm going to force the issue against the team that I feel like we're more talented than, because the last thing they want to do is get into a shootout. So we talked a lot about being extra aggressive on four-down situation and special teams, being aggressive on defense, understanding, hey, every now and then you may get burnt, for a big play, but that's okay. That's part of the game plan. That's part of the scheme. We're going to put you in situations to make plays and get them off the field. And by starting fast, you force a team like a West Forsyth, the South Forsyth, the Central Forsyth. They can't sit on the ball, right? They can't hold that thing and limit our possessions. And I just truly believe our offense is dynamic enough that if you give it enough opportunities, it's going to catch fire. Kind of a quick note, the South Forsyth game. First half we're kind of just missing, and then we score 28 points in 12 minutes. We know we have those capabilities. We just need those opportunities.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of stats just from our conference games. Our opponents scored 7 touchdowns in 5 games. We scored 30. If you do the math and add in some field goals, our opponents scored 54 points. We scored 212 points in those 5 games. We had over 1,000 yards rushing to our opponents' 576, and passing yards, we had 939 yards passing to 568. There's other stats in here relative to scoring in the red zone, time possession, kickoff returns, etc. But it was just sheer domination by that team. Where are they now? Where's their head now? Is this a confident team? Is this a team that understands that they've got a lot of work left to do? I mean, what's the team?
I'd say the two things we talk most about is going 4 for 4, right? And that means winning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I felt like Archer, we went 4 for 4. Cardinal Gibbons, we went 4 for 4. West Forsyth, we went 4 for 4. And Lambert, we went 4 for 4, right? And they see that correlation. When we have a great week of practice, we end up performing pretty well on the field. It's kind of almost eerie. If our Monday is bad, it feels like our first quarter is bad. If our Tuesday is bad, it's like a second quarter thing. So we talk a lot about that, and that helps us keep the focus on us. But the other thing I was real quick to tell them today was, hey, you were clearly better than the last 5 opponents you played, but don't forget that the last 2 times we played very good teams, we came up short. So we got to make sure we keep that humility and understand that it's all about the work we put in, and nobody's going to roll over for you in the playoffs. Everybody's fighting because they know it's do or die, and so I expect that we'll come out tomorrow and have a fantastic day of practice. We had fantastic meetings today, and just roll this thing through, and hopefully we go 4 for 4 this week and pick up a dub on Friday.
Great, absolutely. So, as an observer of the game, we see the big plays. We see the offensive touchdowns. On the defensive side, we see the big hits, the fumbles, the interceptions. But what are some of the things that you see that you believe are the key differentiators in the game? I mean, what about this team do you think is performing well that the rest of us don't see just by watching the football game that's really making a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think one X factor we have, barring last week, I felt like we had a little slip up, but our special teams, I feel like 9 to 10 games we have clearly outplayed other teams in special teams, whether it be blocking a punt for a touchdown against Cardinal Gibbons and West Forsyth to get on the board first, whether it be a surprise onside to steal some momentum and kind of get somebody that way. Our kickoff coverage, I don't think we've allowed a team past the 40 on kickoff coverage. We've been solid on protection. No punts have been blocked, and we've really gotten better at our field goal at an extra point, even though we kind of had a little work to do there from early on. So I feel like we've had an edge there, and that's really helped us either gain some momentum, steal some momentum, or put some teams away. Offensively, kind of the number one thing coming in from last year, we were explosive last year. We weren't consistent. And I feel like we're extremely consistent. I mean, you ain't going to score every time, and sometimes if you have a little sputter early on, everybody's like, what's wrong with it? But, again, I feel like each game, as the game's going on, we've been able, whether it's out of the gate, second quarter, third quarter, whatever, we've been able to find some rhythm to put points up in bunches. And then defensively, going back to it, we've been able to get teams off the field. We've been aggressive. We're not a send the house type of guy, type of team, but we play with tight coverage. We come up and we hit and we separate teams from the football, and we've just done a good job of not allowing teams to sit on the ball and hold it for long periods of time.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at time of possession as a stat alone. There's not a huge difference. I mean, we're leading in time of possession, but when you start to do the math on the points, etc., it says a couple of things. One, we're scoring pretty quickly. We're getting the ball down the field. And two, to your point, we're not leaving their offense on the field very long. So our offense is getting a lot more opportunities each game, even though the time of possession isn't significantly different.
Yeah, it's not significantly different. If you just look at this year, we're pretty even with our teams. But if you look at it from last year, I think the opponent's time of possession is down nearly 4 or 5 minutes a game. There's another stat in there about first downs. I think we've given up 30 less first downs this time than last year. So that kind of speaks to that a little bit.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, you've got, from this year to last year, some pretty significant differences. I think one of them you just mentioned, first downs. Our teams this year have gotten 32 fewer first downs than they have this year. Where's the big difference? Is it just the talent that we're playing? Is it the type of defense that you're running? Is it something that you're scheming? Where do you see the big impact there?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things, but it's something we spoke a lot about. Again, just going back to 3 games from last year, really 4 games. I think back to Cambridge last year. I think back to West Forsyth last year. I think back to Forsyth Central last year, where it was just we were clearly the more dominant team, and we didn't give up a lot of points in those games. I mean, I think we shut Forsyth Central out last year, but they held the ball, and so it was an emphasis we put on our guys this year of, it's not good enough just to hold them out of the end zone. Heck, I would almost rather them score sometimes if they're going to hold it for 9 minutes and get because then that has an impact on our offense. I'd rather trade blows than sit there and have those guys on the sideline. So just a schematic and a mentality of, hey, it's okay to go be aggressive. It's okay to sell out and go break that play up or turn them over,
So when you watch good football teams play defense, the thing that you see a lot of today is getting the ball out, stripping the ball, getting that ball on the ground, giving us a chance to get it back. There's this huge standout stat between this year and last year. Last year, we forced 9 fumbles and recovered 6 of those. I almost want to let you guys guess how many fumbles we forced this year, but I won't. 23, and we've recovered 12. We have caused that ball to hit the ground 23 times. What are you guys doing in practice that has made such a big difference in getting that football out on the ground?
If you come and watch, you'll hear one maniac out there screaming over and over and over again. And when defense is on, I'm behind them, and we implement a 2-whistle system. And what that means is, the first whistle signifies that the ball has been stopped, but the second whistle signifies you run to the ball until that second whistle happens. And while they're running to the ball, the other guys are supposed to be stripping and trying to rip it away. And we put a huge emphasis on that. It's something we practice. It's something we preach. It's something we reward. It's something we criticize when we don't see it. And kind of the next level of that, there's something I don't like about that stat, is that we've caused 23, but we've only recovered 12. We've spent 2 or 3 weeks talking about clear and cloudy. Meaning, if it's clear and nobody's around, scoop it and score. If it's cloudy, get on the darn thing. But I think that goes back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier. We have guys that are flying around. They're always kind of going for the big play. And we get bit by that a little bit on the fumbles. As you'll see, they're always trying to scoop and score that thing, sometimes in a pile of people when it's like get on the ball. So, all those type of things we're working on. But I do love the fact that we've separated that thing 23 times. I mean, if you go back and look at one of the fumbles that we didn't recover, it sums all that up from last week. Sair's got the guy, and he rips it out. And JD comes in, he scoops it, and he knocks it back to the other guy. Coaching moment there, jump on it. But it actually worked out for him because we ended up picking the next one off for 98 yards. So I guess he got away with that one.
Yes, he did. And a great return that was. Flipping to the offensive side, I thought just a couple of things that stood out between this year and last year. Our touchdown conversion in the red zone, up over 13% over last year. I think last year we were in the 50s. This year we're 68, almost 70% touchdowns in the red zone. What's the difference there? What are you guys doing scheme-wise?
Yeah, I think kind of developing some of the guys early on that we did with the tight ends, and just kind of the scheme that we really kind of solidified from the week one to now. It was like last year we were constantly kind of tinkering and trying to figure out what we want to do down there. There's so many great things, and sometimes you can be, can't make your mind up on what you want to do. This year I felt like we had a real clear identity about, hey, these 4 to 5 things out of these sets we feel real good with. Kind of early and often we were able to hit on those, and our efficiency has been up tremendously with that. Just some lessons learned from last year probably.
Yeah, I also, just lastly, I think stat-wise between the 2 years, one of the other things is when you look at points per quarter, we're scoring a lot more points in the first quarter this year than we were last year.
Yeah, and again, it goes to kind of the consistency, I think. And whereas last year it seemed like we waited till the fourth quarter and we really kind of piled it on. This year, I feel like first, second, and third quarter we're really scoring, every other drive, if not, better than that. So.
Yeah, and then the fourth quarter is funny because our opponents are scoring more in the fourth quarter. But I think it's interesting. We got a little bit of the Alabama to Tagovailoa, going on here where we've got a lot of kids that are getting some playing time in the fourth quarter. That probably weren't getting playing time last year.
And that's something we've worked through as a staff too, is trying to figure out when's that right moment to kind of dial the gear back, and we kind of got stuck in no man's land against Alpharetta. I think we talked about that, where we kind of pulled some guys and we put some guys back in, because you signify to your guys, hey, okay, we're kind of calling the dogs off and we let our guard down. But it's great as we've worked through these last 5 games to have that luxury. Lambert, halftime, 51-0. I mean, we can get a lot of guys in. Same thing kind of throughout most every game. We've been able for that fourth quarter to get some guys some experience and let them have some on-the-job training, so to speak. So in the stat line, it may not show up so pretty, but I'm not trying to win stat lines. I want to build a program and understand that getting those guys experience is way more valuable than having a pretty stat line.
Well, it's like the business world. We say, revenue cures a lot of problems, and you guys are scoring a lot more points than the other team. That cures a lot of problems.
Hey, yeah. I'll sign that one.
Well, super. Let's talk a little bit about some of the unsung heroes on your team. We're very used to talking about how great of a season Jordan's having, and we'll get to that, and Edwards and others. But you've got a lot of young guys out there that are getting a lot of playing time. You've got a lot of that are doing their job as a unit successfully. What are some of the things that you're really proud of this year as far as guys that may not have the big stats, but they're getting it done and helping us win football games?
I mean, I think you look at both fronts. Both fronts were young coming in, and a lot of times, whether it's a D lineman or an O lineman, their good work a lot of times doesn't show up in the stat column. I think about guys like Alec Hutchinson, who came in and is just tenacious and if you watch a touchdown, you're probably going to see him somewhere on the frame. Will Bentley who steps in as kind of an oversalt senior who has just been an anchor on that O-line. Same thing on the defensive side with Xander and Marcos and Tuminia and Connor Gay and Alan Walker, even though he's kind of got some great stats. There's lots of games where his dirty work's not showing up, taking on blockers and allowing those linebackers to run free. I'd also say the tight ends that we've developed with freshman Jack Nickel and Ricky Haviland, who've just done a lot of things for us. It may not be big crushing blocks. It may not be getting a lot of passes out of the backfield, but we're getting hat on hat, and we're putting teams in a very, very tough situation. Do I have to commit the extra guy to the box, who we still can pick up because we have a quarterback to get +1 numbers, or do I have to play coverage because they can beat us outside? And so all those little things go into a game plan and don't show up in the stat column, but are huge.
That they are. So I want to talk about some of the guys in the stat column. Since it's the end of the regular season, we had some great numbers this year. If you look at individually speaking, and I'm not going to do too much comparison over last year, but there's a couple of standouts. Rushing, Josh Edwards got to 954 yards, and when you look at his combined all-purpose yards, over 1,000 this year. What an impact that young man's had on the program. Considering we lost Solomon Van Horst last year and thought we were going to have a gap there, and yet he almost had as many yards as Van Horst in 17.
Right, yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's really kind of cool. I think they're like 3 carries apart. What is it? Solomon had 150.
Yeah, they're less than 100 yards apart.
Less than 100 yards and touches apart. And they're different backs, and that's what's kind of cool, how you can kind of get that same production in different ways. Solomon again was a lot of his yards came in bunches. The 80-yard runs and a lot of the 60-yard runs. And while Josh has his share of those as well, I think Josh has really done a great job of getting that yard after contact, getting those sometimes that play that may not be there. He's able to make somebody miss at the first level and then carry somebody with him on the second level to get us ahead of the chains or get a big first down. So he's been tremendous.
Well, we'll talk about Jordan Yates as well, but he was your second leading rusher on the season with 684 yards. I'll go through your top 5. Ahmad Eccles got some great time in the fourth quarter and racked up 334 yards.
Right.
Not a lot of time this year in the first through third quarters, but when he got a shot in the fourth quarter, he certainly made it worth it.
Right. Well, and he's getting more time. It kind of depends on how the game's going, but we feel way more confident of being able to bring him along. And that's what it's all about. Given the opportunity, show us what you can do, and now he's we have zero hesitation throwing Ahmad in when we need to spell Josh or give him a blow or have him go in there and do the job.
Well, you got your fourth guy on the list who comes over from defense and runs the rock for us. Jordan Davis had 200 yards rushing this year, and you round off the top 5 with surprisingly Jackson Weaver with 11 yards. Rushing. Number 5 on the list. Top 5er. That was a big run, too, by the way. I saw that.
Fantastic.
Let's talk about passing. There's nobody else to talk about, obviously, other than Jordan. Attempted 199 throws this year, completed 126 of them. That's a 63.3 yard passing percentage. When you look at a guy that's got the wheels that he does, that's the true dual threat, but can deliver the football at that sort of efficiency, that's a special player.
Yeah, and the thing is, that 63 is solid, and it could easily be close to 70. Now there's always things that are going to happen. You got to take that into account, and almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? But we've been so close on some big plays. We've had some tough luck drops, So that all incompletes aren't created equally, if you will. There's some really bad ones in the dirt and in the stands and bad reads and things like that. But I would tell you he's had several just right there things that I feel like we're starting to hit. You know, you see the big posts that we've been real efficient on the last couple games that we just missed in the Parkview game. We just missed, you know, against maybe even Roswell a couple times, and they were Alpharetta. So we're getting even better there. Our drops are way down from last year, which is something that's very important. So we're definitely, I think the efficiency of our offense has increased at the same percentage as the efficiency of our passing game.
What have you seen from Yates this year as far as just improvising and turning what could be a busted play into a success? It seems like there's many times where he gets outside the pocket, you're not sure if he's going to run and throw, and the next thing you know, he's lobbing the ball down the field for a touchdown.
Oh yeah, no, I mean obviously that, you know, we'll say it on the headset a lot of times. Like that's why he's there. You know, he makes us look smart a lot of times. But I'm probably going to take this in a direction you didn't think. I see less of it, which is a good thing. You know, we want plays to be on schedule. You know, we love the fact that we have somebody back there that can turn a bad play into a good play. But I felt like last year, you know, and watching his sophomore tape, he was almost looking to do that, you know, if it didn't pop right now, and instead of kind of being a little more patient and letting the play develop, which is consistent, which is repeatable. So, yeah, while there's still those outstanding, you know, reverse field throws like in the Archer game, or the reverse field run for the touchdown in the West Forsyth game, there's a lot more on rhythm, on schedule, just, you know, pretty football plays that you think, hey, man, we can do that in the state championship. Yep. We can do that in the semis. We can do that against the best teams, and not you know, hope and wish for something miraculous to happen.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to watch either way. Receivers, you've got, I think, some really standout receivers this year. Obviously, you've had some injuries the past few weeks. But Dylan Leonard, just almost out of nowhere, had a phenomenal year. He's a big target. He's making great catches. 509 yards receiving, and that's in 30 catches. So he's averaging 17 yards a catch. Mm-hmm. Great season.
Yeah, no, I mean, and people say almost out of nowhere. I just say, hey, we knew it was there. It's definitely not out of nowhere to us. It was just all a matter of you know, getting the guy healthy and then, you know, figuring out how to, you know, get him the ball. You know, Jordan probably has never thrown a lot to a tight end over the middle. And that, especially I remember being a young coordinator, it's really easy to look at a game and see things open outside. You know, it's really easy to take it and throw it long outside the numbers, or a flood concept where you got your deep, middle, you know, short pattern. But when you get comfortable throwing that ball in the soft spots in the middle, that's when some explosive plays can happen. And we really started zeroing in and finding Dylan in some of those plays right there.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch those crossing routes. He's fearless going across the middle, catching the football. And, you know, I think that's certainly one of these kids that, you know, we may have a chance to be watching on Saturdays.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Jordan Cox, 385 yards receiving, but he's been hurt. You've got several guys that are hurt between Cox and Shaw and Micah White.
Right.
How's your receiving core looking going into the playoffs?
Hopefully those guys have a good week this week. Soft tissue injuries to Holden and Jordan, so those always make me nervous, just because you never know, right? You never know till you go out there and you open it up for the first time and you cross your fingers and hope, okay, it's good. You know, Micah's is a fracture in his wrist. We're hoping he's going to get cleared. Well, I think he has been cleared officially to club it, which will let him play some defense, which he was really coming on and playing some good corner for us. But with that being said, this year really helped us see the value of our second position philosophy. As we see three starters go down in the same position group and really not skip a beat. You know, we were able to plug in a Joe Charleston more. We plugged in a Sire Waters more. We plug in a Nasir Curry a little more, and we're able to Jack Rhodes, and we're able to continue to go. And you know, that's a credit to the coaches and personnel management, sharing guys and sharing time. And it's like a Rubik's Cube sometimes. Hey, this kid's going to be here or there. I got to steal him here, but we got to make sure they get all their reps at their primary position. But it is a fun part of the process to kind of solve those problems as you go forward with the inevitable injury that's going to happen.
So switching over to defense real quick, just wrapping up the stats. Tackles are always our number one criteria when we're figuring out who can play and who can't. But some big numbers. Jordan Davis leads in total tackles. He had 47 unassisted tackles, 41 assisted tackles, for a total of 88. Jack Rhodes had a total of 67. Xander Barnett, 59. Joe Charleston, 52. Marcos Rangold, 45. And Charlie Keeney with 44. That's a lot of players over 40 tackles. What's also interesting about that is when you look at that list, you got a lot of juniors in that list as well. What I see too in this is when you look at the number of assisted tackles, that says more than one guy's getting to the football. You guys look like this year there's a big mentality around gang tackling, around getting to the football. What do you do in practice to keep that mentality up?
Yeah, go back to what we're talking about with the second whistle. And we'll have them running again if guys aren't running. I just think it's a mentality. Everybody understands that football is all about the ball, right? We talk about it, but if you're not constantly looking at it, ripping at it, tripping at it, seeing it on the ground and scooping it up, then it doesn't become second nature. Same thing with ball away run. If ball away in practice and I stand and I watch, then I tend to stand and watch a little more in a game. And we count those loaves, and we have accountability on Monday for those loaves. But what's really cool is I think, more times than not, you see 11 red blurs breaking for a ball, whether it's the backside in or backside corner. They're all running to get to it because, something Coach Connell stresses is big plays happen on cutbacks. Direction goes one way, play cuts back, but you can nullify that cutback with pursuit.
So a great season as far as just, getting guys into positions to replace guys that were really good last year. Obviously, from a staff perspective, a lot of things moving in the right decision. But I'm going to switch gears on you, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here. Let's talk about a few of these top guys, but I'm going to ask you to do it in one word. Meaning, I'm going to throw out a name, and I want you to describe that player in one word.
All right.
I'll give you a softball right off the bat here. Jordan Yates.
Leader.
Eager. Why?
I think he leads in such a way, by example, by his work ethic, by his care that other people, understand what's going on and doing what they need to do. They were supposed to be in at 1:30 to lift today. He came in at 1 to help sweep up the locker room because he didn't like the way it was left after the game the other night. Things like that just humble me every opportunity, when I hang out with that young man. So his leadership to me is the number one thing going for him, over his legs, over his arm, over his athleticism. It's really cool.
That's awesome. Josh Edwards.
Tenacious. Tenacious. I think you watch that young man run. He runs with bad intentions in a good way.
Yeah, I think that was easy to see.
Yeah, those knees keep churning, and I tell you, man, it's just from the first game of the year, the amazing run he had in that Archer game that I really think got us going when he kind of comes out of the other side of a four-man pile to last week when we're like, hey man, you're right at like 195. You want another carry to see if you can get to 200, and he is carrying people to get that extra 7 yards, and it's just awesome watching that guy compete.
All right, how about Dylan Leonard?
Healthy. That's the word that
Thank
comes
God,
to mind.
right?
Healthy, and he is showing everybody what he can do. I always say credit Coach Reeves. I don't think we had worked out with the guys maybe 2 or 3 times, and Dylan wasn't healthy, go figure, but he was still running around doing some things. He was healthy enough to kind of participate, and he looked right at him. This is when he was a junior, so that's the best receiver we have on this team. But what's cool is, yeah, he's a great receiver, but man, he has really, really, really demonstrated that he can block and block with the best of them with his hand down in the box. And to me, that's what makes him marketable at the next level.
Yeah, he's been Johnny on the spot, without a doubt. Let's get out of the skill positions and go down to your offensive line and your center, Anthony Manila.
Anthony Manila, baller. Baller. He is, his blocks don't show up on the highlight reels because he's not out there pulling and doing certain things. But I'm going to tell you, you want to see somebody finish blocks, you watch that young man and watch him execute a double team and just take it over and take somebody to the ground.
That's all. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, let's talk about, we can talk about a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. Let me see here. Who do I start with? Joe Charleston.
Joe Charleston. I'm trying to think of the word to best describe his energy, right? And I guess you just say energy because that young man brings it. He, that's what leads to his dynamic play a lot of times, but it also leads to his dynamic personality. And nobody has more fun out there than he does. You can truly see that he's a spark that gets the defense going. And, just seeing him on a game day, seeing him make a play and just loving every minute of it, it's why we play the game.
I think the word was energy, right?
Yeah, the energy.
Great. All right, one of the guys I really like to watch, Xander Barnett.
Xander Barnett. And this may sound like it's not as sexy as the other word, but in a great way, consistency. You know what you're getting with Xander every day, and it's going to be great effort. It's going to be exactly the way it's coached. Each play is full speed, and that's what you need in that spot right there. You don't need somebody on, saving it for a pass rush situation. He is consistent, and he's on the spot, and he does exactly what Coach Connell coaches him to do, and it's awesome.
All right, that's good. I won't put you on the spot anymore, but those are great answers.
No, I appreciate it.
All right. So let's talk about playoffs, but let's talk about it from an internal perspective. As a coaching staff, what's your week look like? Is the playoff week any different than the other weeks? But would you kind of walk us through what does Sunday through Friday night look like for you guys?
No, it won't be any different. There may be a little more time spent just because the amount of game tape that you'll get. And the fact that now we actually did have a luxury of having the region wrapped up, so we were able to kind of get ahead and make some phone calls and do some wheeling and dealing and getting some extra tape of guys that we could potentially play just so we can get some of the breakdown done, things that just take time. But essentially you wrap a game up on Friday, we'll meet as a staff. Those meetings aren't real long, just to kind of make sure we talk about anything we need to talk about and anything going forward. I know me personally, each coach is a little different. I'll spend anywhere from 3 to 7 hours watching film on Saturday, just kind of depending. The first part is going to be breaking down last night's game and grading your players. The second part is then going to be organizing your film and getting it where you can get the best analysis, and then you're going to get into game planning and those type of things. We'll come in on Sunday. I'll normally get there. I got there about 11 today. Continue doing those things, and then I'll start meeting kind of with coordinators, special teams. I have a big role in the run game on offense, and me and the O-line coach will sit and talk a little bit, and coordinator, and just kind of start getting that ready. Our staff meeting starts at 1. Again, talking practice plan, talking personnel, those type of things. We'll bring the seniors in to start lifting at 1:30. They'll lift 120 to 2. 2 will be our team meeting. Again, we'll talk about lessons learned from last week, game plan for this week, players of the week, all that kind of stuff. Then we'll watch film with the players for about 20-30 minutes from last week, put a bow on that. And then the underclassmen will go lift, and then we'll get back into our breakouts. And normally that breakout, so an offensive game plan meeting will start at about 2:30, and if we're going good, we may get out of there by 6. And then we'll come in. We shifted it now that we're not meeting with the players Monday morning. Wanted to give them a little extra rest. So we bring them in Monday after school. We'll meet for 30 minutes, and then we go practice 4:30, 6:30, 2-hour practice there. Tuesday morning lift, Tuesday after school practice, Wednesday after school practice, Thursday morning yoga, short practice on Thursday, breakfast Friday morning.
Quite the schedule.
Game time.
So let's talk about your coaches for just a second, though. I mean, you know, I think a lot of us, we don't get to see all that. We don't get to see all the game planning that goes on. We're not sure actually who's responsible for what in general, but, you know, what we do know is we know you, and generally we know who your offensive coordinator is and your defensive coordinator, but what other coaches this year has stepped up and surprised you and really had an impact on the kids and on the team?
Well, you know, start with the coordinators. I mean, with all that I just said, they got to put together practice scripts every day. And I know me personally, when I was putting a practice script together, to get it done in under an hour and a half would be fast. So you're talking about another hour and a half of work every day just putting that script together and then watching practice film. So, you know, those coordinators work their tails off, right? Now, with that being said, they've got great help as well, and they do a good job, and I think as a staff we've done a good job of delegating stuff out. Vinny Silvestri is our running backs coach and our special teams coordinator, and he and I work real close with special teams and doing those type of things. I mean, there's a lot of personnel management that goes on with that. There's you know, obviously, you know, kickoff. What are they going to do in their return game? What are they going to do in their punt game, punt block game, and all that stuff? So he's done a great job. I think, you know, Jace Ratliff taking the O-line, being the first time as we moved Coach Strami to the defensive side of the ball this year. That's a young 25-year-old basically taking on a rebuilt offensive line, and that is his first time as ever being the head of a position group, and he has done fantastic. Coach Weiss, I tell him he wins Personnel Management of the Year award every year because he handles those divas out wide and the receivers, and nobody communicates with their players and lets them know kind of on a daily basis where they stand any better than him. On the defensive side of the ball, we've got Coach Estes, who's the head track coach. He's got a young, a young one playing ball that he coaches, but he is kind of our voice of reason over there on defense a lot of times and helps manage some of the personalities over there in the secondary. Coach Estes as well with all the speed and agility and stuff he does, and helping us be as dynamic as we are and coach the corners. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Coach Strami. He's my assistant head coach, and I tell you, man, all our guys have their own little unique set of skills and what they bring to the table. His organization is paramount for me, and what he helps me do with the administrative side of things, and the communication he gives up and down the chain to Coach Sly and out to the with Therese and to the parents and things like that. And just a lot of the game day stuff, he's really helping organize and keeps us on track. So you go up and down the list, and even to young Drew Dixon, who is he's kind of our assistant O-line coach, but man, he is the one that's always running around, scooping stuff up. And he was on the advanced crew when we went to the Corky Cal. I mean, that guy probably had 20,000 steps that day running around and making sure we're where we need to be and everything's accounted for and getting the sidelines set up. So it is definitely a collective effort that I'm very humbled to have so many good men working with me and have a board that helps me get and hire those guys and have an administration that supports getting those guys in the building.
Well, the work is evident, and I appreciate you letting us see a little bit of what happens on the inside.
Absolutely.
That's a ton of work that you guys do every week. All right, let's talk about playoffs. Playoffs. There you go. I was waiting on that. If you haven't seen it already, folks, the brackets are out. I'm sure everybody has already perused through this. I'm not going to ask you to talk about anything beyond the first week, but let's talk about South Gwinnett. Obviously, they're coming off a couple of tough losses back to back to end their season. However, everybody seems to get a chip on their shoulder for Milton. What do you see in this team that makes you concerned?
I mean, I see a load of talent. I see good size. I see a defense that's very, very, very underrated. They've had, which scares you about a team like this, they've lost a lot of games on self-inflicted wounds. So surely they're not going to do that against us, right? So if they play a clean game, their record is probably 8-2. And it's one of those things where they'll either have a special teams miscue or an offensive miscue or a busted coverage or something like that. Whereas 80% of the game they're right there toe to toe with some really good football teams, and then they kind of have a mistake. So that being said, they don't make the mistake. That's a good football team, and that's what we got to prepare to play.
What are you focused on this week? I know you're always scheming. You've always got something that you're looking at. I'm not asking you to give it away secrets live on YouTube, but
all the viewers out there.
Their coaching staff is watching this. We can tell who's logged in. But what are you really focused on this week, execution-wise?
Well, I mean, honestly, or obviously, they are kind of going back to your first question into this one. They do a lot of different things on offense. They do a lot of different things on defense. And for us, I consider myself a schemer. I like to kind of be able to move the chess pieces around and know this is where you're going to be. That makes it difficult on me. It makes me uncomfortable. So what we're going to have to do as a staff is make sure that we employ an attack that is good against multiple things, and that's easier said than done, right? Because we want to execute at a high level like we have with very few mental mistakes. We got to do a good job of putting our guys in position against predictable unpredictability. So that's a tough thing to do. So we'll talk a lot about that on offense and continue to round out our scheme about any little tweaks we see or any little nuggets we find. But same thing on defense. That they'll give a lot of different looks. With a team that gives a lot of different looks, there's always that element of, oh man, didn't see that coming. Here's the double pass, or here's the receiver nobody saw, and those type of things. So we talked a lot about, hey, let's make them always play one more. Right, really want to make sure we keep them in front this week and force them to drive the ball, not win on the explosive play.
So as spectators this week, what positions on their side should we be watching? Who are some of their key spots?
Yeah, their defensive line has several very good looking, big explosive players. Their safety's really good. Offensively, they've got a couple good receivers, a good running back. So just again, it's not. They don't necessarily have a ton of the Power 5 guys necessarily. The guy that's on the cover of the magazine, but it's like you look across, you see no holes.
Should be a fun game. Obviously, it's going to be an exciting atmosphere having a team travel into our spot and get to take on a local team in a playoff game that. Just really feels like we've got some great momentum.
Absolutely.
So, super excited about what's going to happen this Friday night. All right. So, Coach, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to talk to you before the season is over, if we get a chance to do this again or not. So I want to talk a little bit about next season and see if you've got anything that you can share with us about, are we looking at doing some of the big stage games again next year? What are some of the things that you're trying to work through from an overall schedule perspective?
Yeah, pretty much everything's set. Looks like we'll probably play Buford in the Corky Kell. We talked about playing this team, Brentwood Academy out of Nashville in the Freedom Bowl. But we still have a game to fill because of the way the season is actually being pushed back a week, which means the Freedom Bowl will be Labor Day weekend will be the second week of our season. That's when we were supposed to play Alpharetta. So what we're going to do is bring Alpharetta into the Freedom Bowl, but split us, and we think that'll help Gates. So I think we'll probably play a Thursday night game, and they'll get to play a Friday night game.
That's great.
And then I think we got, hopefully, fingers crossed, Hoover and Colquitt coming in to play that Saturday night game.
Wow.
So that'll help really generate the buzz. But that means we've got to fill a game. So we've got to find a team to play. And, you know, don't really know right now. Beggars can't be choosers at the end of the day. So it could be anywhere from another dynamic powerhouse to, you know, whatever.
And how about our other rivals? Cambridge, Roswell.
We'll play Roswell. Yeah, everything else will stay the same.
Okay.
So it'll be Roswell, Parkview region.
Great.
We'll be in the second year of a 2-year cycle.
Great.
And then the following year, I see that the regions will probably shift and change, and you'll see some movement. Whether they're even talking about doing away with 7A again and making it all back down to 6. So who knows what'll happen after that.
So, you know, looking at the team overall, you've got one of the nice things that we talked about tonight, how many juniors you've got out there that are making a huge impact this year, whether it's on your offensive line, which I think all your entire offensive line are underclassmen with the exception of one. Defensive line is the same. You got a lot of juniors at linebacker. You got a lot of talent coming back next year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's a good place to be. Every year you're going to lose a really good senior class, just like we did last year. We're going to lose some great pieces this year. You know, the first thing that obviously jumps out is you're going to lose a 3-year starter at quarterback. So obviously that'll be something that we'll be working to replace. And you know, the big thing about that is that affects your scheme more than anything. So. But the beauty of what we do is very multiple and flexible, and we'll be able to work on that as that starts to come into focus. But where we had comfort in the fact that we had a quarterback returning, we'll have comfort in the fact that we'll have some guys returning up front with some starts, which is very good, and that's on both sides of the ball. We feel like we got really good depth at that linebacker to outside linebacker level. Even some guys who aren't getting a lot of playing time right now. Whether injury or just behind somebody that's really good, you know, we feel like we're going to be have some depth there and you know, have some guys that can plug in, you know, but it'd be kind of the opposite of this year. It'd be kind of quarterback and kind of back end and back into the defense and skill positions that really have some position battles and have to do a great job of developing some young guys to step up.
Awesome. So we're going to be wrapping up here in just a second, folks, but I wanted to ask before we do, any questions, anything else? Not just one, but we got a whole list. Let me grab that.
Oh, let me check these real quick.
Thank you.
I've got a few questions for Todd Towns.
It wasn't me. It was you.
And we got that on film, by the way? All right. See if I've got anything I got to filter here, Coach. I think we got some good ones. All right. I like this first question. What do you think was the team's best game of the season?
Cardinal Gibbons, hands down. One of the best games by a team I've ever been a part of. I don't know if y'all do any scoreboard watching or see what they're doing. They have not lost since they lost to us. They beat nationally ranked teams. They are now way back up in the national rankings, and we obliterated them. I mean, we stole their soul a little bit that night. So, and that was just, our guys came out and played with an energy that is really kind of a cloud nine experience. From like I said, blocking the opening kick to, you know, corralling just a fantastic quarterback in Scalzo but on offense, just so methodical. And then big play, you know, and it was just a great game.
That was a phenomenal game. I was lucky enough to be on the chain crew on their sidelines during that game.
Pretty cool when you can make the opposing coaches fight one another.
That it is. And those Catholic coaches have got some mouths on them, let me tell you that. Best story after that game, though, Mark Walter is an old blind dog afterwards and runs into a group of their parents. One of the parents was the backup quarterback's father. And he showed Mark a text on his phone that his son had sent him earlier that day when he saw our football team out on the field warming up. Kid sent him a text to his dad and said, these guys are slow, and small, I'll be in the game by the second quarter.
I don't
There
know
you
about
go.
slow and small thing, but they could have thrown him in the game in the fourth quarter. It wouldn't have made a difference.
There you go. I think his father went on to say we were the best football team that he's ever seen, that they've ever played against. All right.
That night we were.
All right. The second question, I probably shouldn't even ask it, Coach. Can you please not score so fast? This is from a Milton defensive parent. All right, we're gonna move on that. All right, health of the team. We talked a little bit about your receivers. We know the status of that. Anybody else that is out there? I think you got Michaels. That's
Well, yeah, hopefully Steven's got a shot at coming back. If we're fortunate enough to be playing next week, there's a potential he's back. Again, the two receivers, we're going to give it a go Monday and Tuesday and see how they are. We lost a backup tackle. Cody Wallen broke his collarbone. That kind of stinks. And Micah White should be back this week with the club. So, but other than that, man, I tell you, I'm just very fortunate.
Are we going to see Mike on the defensive side of the ball a little bit?
Micah? Yeah. And not to take anything away from what he does as a receiver, because I hated he got hurt because he had his breakout game against South Forsyth, and we knew he was right there. I really think the value he adds to our team is in being that big, tall kind of cover corner. And I know as an offensive guy, there's one thing I hate to see is a rangy corner with a lot of length. So he's going to be back, hopefully giving us some help there.
All right. What can your team still get better at?
I think something that we're always improving on is make sure we don't do the dumb penalty, the dumb mistake. We were very, very, very proud of the boys on those 3 long runs this past week. We talk about open hands. Football's changing, right? If you hit somebody in what's determined a blind side or defenseless and you lead with the shoulder, obviously you can't lead with the head. You can't even lead with the shoulder. So you've got to lead with open hands. You can still hit them hard, but you got to lead with open hands, right? And obviously it's got to be in front. We've had probably over 200 yards of offense or returns brought back. Well, we had 3 huge plays where we had guys, hustling down, making blocks to spring those guys. We had Amari Martinez make 2 blocks on Josh's long run. He blocked the play to get it started, then he blocked the play to finish it, which was just phenomenal. So making sure that we don't do the stupid things that we know better than. Making sure, clear, cloudy, fumble cover. Hey, let's get on the ball, right? There's a time for the big play. There's a time to make sure that we just scoop it and recover it. I think that would be the biggest thing.
Good. So here's another question. This one's a little bit about scheme, so if you can't answer it, I totally understand. But in the game the other night, we saw a little bit of a reminiscent of the '86 Bears and Refrigerator Perry carrying the ball. I think most everybody in this room is old enough to remember that. With Big Paul. Should we expect Paul to pass for a touchdown?
Hey, I don't think he can. Now, I tell you, but speaking of that, one thing I think Coach Reeves does a good job of, and I think our coaches do, we have fun. We have fun out there, right? And that's part of, the gadget play series, is not getting cute. It's part of our offense. It's something that the kids enjoy. Spicing things up, on special teams is something our kids enjoy. I think, getting a 300-pound athlete, which he is, an athlete back there and feeling comfortable. We've worked that for several weeks now. Second time we tried it. First time he tried to bounce it, right, which was like Paul now. He ain't Barry Sanders back there. Forward, son, forward. He got him another shot, and I tell you, just to see the look on his face after he scored that touchdown, and the look on the entire team's face, hey man, that's priceless, and I think that helps us go. I think that's part of why we come out. People ask me a lot of times because 2 years in a row now we've come out and been the better team in the second half. What kind of crazy adjustments are you making? And honestly, Very, very, very few. The biggest thing I think is our kids are comfortable. They realize that it's a 48-minute game. We have fun with them. We have fun out there. We reset the mind. We adjust the mindset, if anything, and we go out and they're loose enough to play in the second half where I think other teams tighten up, and I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, you could see it. Everybody was excited about that play and gathered around Paul.
I showed half a dozen people this weekend.
But and probably smart not to let him throw. I've seen him throw. He's got a heck of an arm. But there's an old saying about broadside of the barn. All right, so somebody may have to help me with this. If you could only watch one first round, are we talking about playoff games? Playoff games, other than ours or Brookwood, right? Which one might it be? I know which one I'd watch.
Let me look. I would probably watch, probably that Roswell game. Yeah, Roswell, and I think it's going to be Tiff. That's going to be a heck of a football game.
Yep.
That's going to be a heck of a football game. Yeah, it's a tough draw by them.
All right. Well, we might be sitting there together. No, we won't be. You'll be coaching. All right. How important is home field advantage in the playoffs?
Well, I'm not a big believer in home field advantage in high school. However, there is something to be said for that hour bus ride. And I'm looking back at some of the games and the slow first halves that we've had. The Parkview game. I think there's a window there. I think if you're traveling up to Forsyth County, you're going over to Roswell, you're going over to Alpharetta, it doesn't matter. Honestly, the bus ride breaks the day up a little bit and helps the flow to me, and so there's not a lot of downtime. And I even think the long bus ride, you got to get out of school early, you get on over there. I don't think that matters as much. But I think there might be a little something to study about that kind of window between that hour and a half. That's something I'm going to continue to look at. If it's something that we got to kind of adjust and, hey, leave a little earlier and go do something else. But with that being said, I think our kids are very comfortable on the road. We build it in with our mindfulness session in the media center, and kind of having that downtime. Part of the rationale was that, this is like your bus ride, or your bus ride is your mindfulness session. So it kind of gives them that kind of routine each game day that they can check into. So I don't mind going on the road at all.
Great. Well, you're not going to have to, and let's just make the most out of it. So last question here, Coach. And this could pertain to the team in general or the playoff game, whatever it might be. But if you could get word out and talk directly to the Milton community and the student body, what would be your request to them?
Come out, be loud. Come out and be loud. Obviously, we see the impact that collective energy can have on our group. It's an excitable group, and they love playing for a big crowd. I think that was part of the Freedom Bowl. I think that was part of, the Archer game. I think that, I remember last year, at the Roswell game and things like that. So just come out and support these guys. They're worth supporting. Man, they played so hard and they worked so hard, and I think we play a real fun and exciting brand of football. So just come on out and support and be loud and let's ride this thing as long as we can. Awesome journey.
We will. Well, that's our responsibility too. Help get that word out, and looking forward to a big crowd there. Sorry, Coach, I did miss one question. I just saw this. Any disciplinary action planned for Todd Towns? No, none. None. Everything's good. All right, good. All right. Sorry, brother. Couldn't let that one slide.
60 I heard it.
He got his money's worth.
Guy surprises us every once in a while, doesn't he?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Look, 8-2, phenomenal season. You're stacked up well in the playoffs. Any last thoughts?
It's been a great ride, man. 2 years has been a great ride, and it's pretty cool to see kind of where we've come, in 2 years, and just not only as a football team, but as a community, as a total program. I feel like I feel the connectivity. I hope y'all do as well. From parents to board to coaches to administration to players, and I think that's a big piece of it. And excited for this week. So we get a shot to hopefully have another week and run that week into another week. And this bandwagon's big enough for the whole town. So I hope they all jump on.
Yep. Well, I am a personal believer that football is the best sport that kids can play to teach them life lessons.
Absolutely.
I think you and your staff have done a fantastic job leading these young men. We got a lot of kids that are out there working hard and having fun.
Absolutely.
And really excited about what you guys are going to do in the playoffs. I hope we get to watch several more football games. I really hope you and I get to do this again.
Absolutely.
I'm going to miss it if we don't. But thank you again for the impact that you've had on these kids' life. Football is never without its challenges, regardless of what your team does in the year, win or lose. But everything has been handled gracefully, and we appreciate all you've done. Heck of a year. Congrats.
Hey.